Welcome back to the Physique Blueprint podcast. I'm your host, Chelsea Kidd, and today I am here with Autumn Cleveland, two-time Olympian, IFBB figure pro. And Autumn is a prep and posing coach who emphasizes mindset, personal transformation, especially in her work with all of her athletes. As a figure competitor, she has been around the sport for over 23 years. And we have a lot to learn from Autumn from all things posing, competing, as well as embracing the highest version of ourselves. Autumn, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. And thank you for having me here. I am very excited for this.
Yeah, I'm so excited. So just for some context, because we do have some people who have followed the podcast pretty consistently. Autumn's husband, Derek, and I talked back in February. And if you guys are following them on Instagram, you already know that you guys are the cutest couple, which is why I invited Derek on for this season of love in February. And it was such a cool conversation.
I was probably more ecstatic than anybody to have that happen because he's so brilliant. Like, I feel spoiled that I get to hear what's inside of his head all day. And unless he's asked, like, it just kind of stays contained. So I'm really glad that he got to share like his mindset, because honestly, like he is my mindset coach. Like,
that's so cool.
Yeah, like I know he probably talked about this some, but like being a professional fighter, mindset in that made me a better bodybuilder. But he's like that with everything, like not just athletics. It's like his philosophies are so brilliant. So I'm glad that he got to be on this podcast and share that part of himself.
Love that. And I mean, I completely agree. Like we were talked a lot about relationships and dynamics with supporting very driven women and things like that. And just everything he said, it sounded like I was talking to a psychology professor or like it was so, and you could tell he's just like, well, it's just this. What a cool alignment that you guys have. And you're both obviously like force multipliers. He says the same things about you that you've just made life so much better for him. So let's take it back to you though, because I know people are really excited to hear more about your journey. So let's talk about how you, I guess just like your background. Where are you from originally? Like what did life look like for young Autumn?
Goodness. Well, I was born in Jeffersonville, Indiana, and I guess I claimed that area for a while. We call it Kentuckyana here, where Kentucky and Indiana are borderline. So I've been here all my life. But when I was younger, right before I got into bodybuilding, I was just really into art. And like I didn't really play sports. That's the funny part about my story. I would try sports, but I wasn't very good at them. I wasn't good at being anything choreographed, or just wasn't. I didn't trust my body. I was very, very thin. Like I was just a very skinny kid genetically.
Yeah.
So like sports had no appeal to me, but the arts did. And so that's kind of where I lived until I was about 13, and my parents decided to switch me schools. They were building a house in another city. So when I switched schools, it was a really small town, not very open-minded people. And they started like picking on me for my body, just being so skinny, and like my clothes. And it just turned into this whole thing where when I was like 12 or 13, going into this new school, I was like, already telling my dad was a police officer then, and I was like, these girls are going to beat me up. And I was like, I don't know how, like, if the wind blows, I'll fall over. So I just wanted to feel stronger so that I could like walk down the hallway and not be bothered. And it got pretty nasty, but my dad started taking me to the gym with him after school. So he would pick me up in his police car from school, and we'd go to the gym and work out together and then go home. And that was like my safe space. So I learned from him, but he started to introduce me to other adults who like to work out. And I was like, oh, this is where I belong. I don't belong in high school with these kids. I belong here. And so I really got a lot of encouragement from adults at the gym, where I started building my confidence. And that's where I met the first female bodybuilder I'd ever met. Her name was Natalie Barnett. And this was like 2003. And she's showing, back then we had actual pictures in picture books, is what we looked for pictures in a photo album of her bodybuilding show. And she goes, do you want to come watch a bodybuilding show? And so my dad took me, and we just went and watched her. This was like 2003. And back then it was just bodybuilding and fitness and figure. Those were the only three divisions. And I was like, I think I can try that.
Cool.
And now I'm here.
More your speed. Oh, that's amazing. Okay, so well, thank you to Natalie, was her name, you said, the pro. Well, thank you to her, and thank you to your dad. That's kind of okay, something that really jumped out at me there. You said that you were getting along with the adults in the gym. But as a kid, but that's so interesting because that kind of implies that you had like an old soul, but you strike me as being so playful now.
Depending on how weird and out there you want to get, I am confident I am an old soul. I've been around this earth many times.
Yeah, that's so interesting. Well, I'm so glad that you found your people. And I also think it's one of the coolest things about bodybuilding is this is the sport that I hear a lot of people say, like, I don't have an athletic background or I kind of sucked at
Yeah.
sports. And then they go pro at like 30. It's awesome for that.
Yeah. I have a lot of appreciation for the sport of bodybuilding after having been in it for so long, but it's really a great place for like people like me who never learned sports, or like people who were athletes before, former athletes, and then they've had injuries, or they just decide like, hey, my body doesn't work that way anymore, but they still want
Hmm.
to practice the mindset. But I think that's what I love about bodybuilding is like you don't have to have a prerequisite.
Yeah.
You just have to decide that that's the identity that you want to be, and then align and use your resources, and then you can do it.
And it really does come down to identity because it's so deeply entrenched. So you ran with this. I think Derek mentioned that you went to school for like a similar field and you went into coaching. I don't want to make any assumptions there, so correct anything that I'm wrong about.
Yeah, that's essentially like when I started lifting weights and I started to like see the changes in my own body. That's where I was like, okay, I was intrigued by the science of it. Get obsessive about something. It's like, I'm all about it. I want to know every in and out. And so I went to college for my major was exercise science, but my minor was in psychology. And when I first started coaching, this was like 2010 or 11, there were hardly prep coaches. We didn't call ourselves prep coaches. We were just bodybuilders who knew more. So the word prep coach was not prominent then. So I couldn't have even described what career path I would have taken because it wasn't available at school. So I
Yeah.
had mix and match. I'm like, here's how I train with bodybuilders. Here's exercise science. Here's like athletic injury training. And I had to kind of collect information from all these resources to bring it into like what I actually need to know to be a prep coach.
It's kind of like life just drops it all on your journey and then it turns into what it's become now.
Yeah, yeah. And then if I hadn't pursued like psychology in that sense, that's how I was able to kind of merge like bodybuilding and then sports psychology to create like
Yeah.
psychology for bodybuilding competitors, especially female.
And that part is so important. I definitely, we've gotten into so many good conversations around just the psychology about it. I guess to keep it on you a little bit longer to unpack more, what do you feel like from a psychological standpoint, like makes you align so well with this sport to have been around it for so long?
That's a good question. I think for me personally, I'm very confident in that I have a deeper energetic purpose here in this industry than even just competing. Like one day I won't compete, but I know to my core that I have like there's something I'm supposed to do here, something I'm supposed to connect or like leave or like build a legacy or like a give back or something. And that's the part that like I think when I can see the way I look at bodybuilding for myself is like it's a platform that I'm really grateful to have right now at this point in my life to carry out my true message, which I think is just like, I mean, it sounds kind of generic, but like transformational because you can take any blueprint of manifesting. I just happen to do it through bodybuilding extremely well. And that's where I can teach other people how to become that embodiment or how to manifest this outcome of
Yeah.
success. But I know when I leave bodybuilding, it'll be a different platform. It's to me, it's a formula. But I've been
Yeah.
practiced in this formula because I can look at myself and go, I was an 89-pound non-athlete to now I'm an Olympic level bodybuilder. Like I had to go through that myself to believe it can be possible.
Totally.
Like me living my story and the experience behind it is how like it converts. It's like I get to have these awesome experiences so that I can pass them on to other people.
And the visual side of it, it matters so much because we're talking transformation on a really, really deep level. So it's like all of these behaviors and your identity and who you surround yourself with, but then it's this other level that you can actually see it on the outside. So it's just, yeah, like the most work is on the inside, but I feel like bodybuilding is such a wonderful, like it brings in so many cool people and it's such a great opportunity because it's like you can see this transformation and that's the gateway, like that's what gets people in, but it's like you have no idea like what's underneath that
Oh,
it's actually happening when people go through that.
that's like when I get a new athlete who's never, I've got one, she's coming on today and she's an Olympic weightlifter in just jiu-jitsu. She has not met the bodybuilding world yet. And one of the first things I try to explain to people coming into this sport is that like what you see in a person's physique is just the tip of the iceberg. Like you have no idea what their story is or what they went through. And it's really hard for me not to get emotional in this, but like I have seen some extreme cases on stage of cancer survivors. There's a guy here in Kentucky where he was in the military and he had been shot in the head and he was blind, and he still got up there
Oh,
and he looked incredible. Like I've seen figure competitors with like no arms, and you're just looking at these people and you're like, wow, like you have whatever you have been through, whatever your story, that and then you chose to do this anyway despite those things. And you're not only up there, you're like showing us how your physical body is just 1% of this. And you
yeah.
don't know the stories of how each athlete got there. So that's why I try to tell my people, I'm like, when you go backstage, connect, like ask questions, learn the people around you, because that's like the deeper message. We all go through the same suffering of prep, but like I think that really broadens our sense of what it is that we're actually doing as an individual, that it feels really independent. Like you're in this one lane that nobody understands. And then you get to this bodybuilding show and then you're like, oh, we're actually all a constellation. Like, how did you get here?
Totally.
It's very,
That's a really good analogy. I love that. Yeah, and how it all like fits together too. And
yeah.
the outside appearance, it's really like it's just the shell of everything that went, into like becoming this person in the transformation. So to help people who may be like a little bit newer to the sport or they're just like starting the journey, what are some of the things from an inner transformation standpoint that they can expect?
My gosh, they are not going to walk out the same person that they walked in as. That is something like when someone just talks about wanting to get on stage, that's the first thing I try to preface them. It's like, yeah, we're getting on stage for that goal, but you are going to be a different version of you. That's kind of the point. Like you say, oh, I want to
Yeah.
be the version of a competitor, and that's what you walk toward. But I think a lot of people maybe aren't prepared for the shedding that needs to happen in order to make space for that connection with who they want to be. And so there's like old patterns and old narratives that they have to drop off. And like some competitors are actually like ready for that on an internal level, but their surroundings aren't.
Yeah.
And which kind of where like I'm blessed to have Derek, because he evolves with me as a human being. But some athletes, they see the version of who they want to be on stage, they're ready to walk toward that, but their partners aren't ready for them to change, or their friends or their family, or all those things. And so that's kind of what I have to up front say, like, you're going to lose some people or some
Yeah.
things, but at the same time you're going to gain a lot of new people and new ways of life. So just trying to let them understand that they find people's true colors around them because they chose to better themselves, it's just a mirroring, and it's not like a fault, but it's a reality.
Yeah.
um,
And I guess, how do you feel about the radical ownership in that situation? Because it's different for everybody. Like you have a supportive partner. I was previously married and my partner actually was pretty supportive, or at least stayed out of my way. So it's, yeah. And so it's one of those tough things whenever I talk to people, because I think that I have not personally experienced quite the same level of like a partner that's not supporting you. But can you give us just some more examples of that? Because I think sometimes it really surprises people when it's like partner, family, kids, work. Like there's just all these interpersonal dynamics that you may have to shed. I love that word. Or take radical acceptance and just change how you show up in that dynamic and what your expectation is from it.
I love the idea of what you asked, but my brain branched off while you were and so sorry, I have like so many ideas at once. What's the core question that you
I
think
guess what would, in terms of like shedding people, what's the disclaimer like, or some examples of that?
let's see, you mean like just besides partners?
Yeah.
Coworkers is a big one. I've got a lot of clients who are teachers, and they have a lot of trouble at work when they're trying to go into the break room and that certain communities, not just teachers, but like nurses, like a lot of people where they have like a room full of food, and that athlete is trying to adhere to their diet, but their work environment, their work team doesn't understand. They start taunting them with food or making them feel excluded. They stop inviting them to work events because they're like, oh, she's doing her thing. And like that's really tough, I think, for a lot of my clients.
Yeah.
Because the hard part about it is it's actually not about that person changing. It's the self-limiting beliefs from those groups of people.
Right. How do
But
you tell them to navigate that?
build more support with bodybuilders. I
Yeah.
actually, like, with my athletes, I try to just build like just a fun little IG chat to be like, hey, this is where you come. When, at the end of your day, when nobody understands, when everyone's giving you hell because this is what you're doing, like, you come here and you talk with us and we remind you of who you are, remind you that this is like normal and this is where you're held in this space. And that works great because it's a camaraderie. And so
Yeah.
it combats where you feel like you're being pushed out of a tribe. It's like you're being pushed into a new one.
And that feeling of like, yes, you get it whenever you're feeling so alone in a journey. Like there's nothing
Yeah.
that quite matches that.
Yeah. And that kind of hits on, just recently there were some events that I was just kind of thinking about, and it's like it's so easy to slip into or choose isolation in this sport because we feel like, and I've felt it before, where it's like nobody can possibly understand how hard this is, and we
Yeah.
get kind of like confined into our minds that nobody could understand, so we just don't even talk about it. But if we just start talking about it, then we're like somebody can hear me. Even if they don't understand, they can still hear me. And so that's something that, like, I also notice when athletes, like, they get on stage, they get in the spotlight, and then the season is over and they kind of go back into their dark hole, and they won't come out because at that point they feel like now they're being judged on their physical body, and like they can't be around their bodybuilding community because they're not in peak condition. Like all these false judgments or criticisms are preventing them from coming out and connecting where it's healthy, and they become like really recluse. And it's all this not truth that even in off seasons, like even when we're not in our spotlight or in our best condition, like that's the most important time to connect with bodybuilders, with each other, because we all understand that loop.
Yeah. And just the cycle that goes on there too. I think you're really right. And I think that's a recipe for being a jaded competitor is if your identity
Mm.
hasn't like, changed along with the sport. And so you get to the end of your show and that's when like the reverse goes horrible. They end up being kind of more jaded or
Yeah.
and it can be a really sensitive time. So like that's a great time to lean into your community more. I think that's really great advice because the reverse is so hard. And
Uh,
then if you were to just bounce right back to your old ways, you do kind of have an identity death over that.
yeah, and that's something that, like, I don't think I'm anywhere near it, but I've had to get really raw and honest with myself. And over the last few years, I've stepped back from the stage. It's hard for me to say stepped away because I think deep down in my heart, I know I'm not stepping away. It's just like, hey, let me step out of this life for a minute so that I can get a dose of reality of like, who am I besides this?
Yeah.
Like I've worried in the past when I was younger, I worried about like, what if I don't have this perfect body? What if I don't have these titles? What if I don't stay out in front of people? And I was always afraid of slipping into that and letting that keep me here for too long. And
Hmm.
I would walk away from the sport, that I would be lost or so detached from myself as a soul that it turns into this kind of crash and burn type situation. So in these times I've like paused and stepped back. It's not just to give like my body a break. It's to allow me to come back to like who I am with or without bodybuilding, to
Yeah.
build that, and then I can come back into the sport knowing who I am.
I love that. And just to recalibrate a little bit too, because I do think like the intensity of the sport will kind of force you to put on some level of blinders at some point, just from a time management standpoint. It's
Yeah.
hard to not get so consumed in it. I want to get your take on something. So I think I don't want to call this like a problem with the sport, but I don't have a better way to say it. So a problem with the sport that I see is that it is such an aesthetically oriented sport, right? Like it is, we're being judged on our bodies. There's a huge beautification process that goes into getting on stage. There's a very spotlight oriented thing. Like, so there's a lot of focus on our looks. And I think as women, that's already a really hard thing. And I mean, I'm not calling you out by this, but I mean, Derek mentioned you were a ring girl. Like you've obviously had a lot of like your appearance has been a factor and a
Yeah.
part of your identity, right, for your whole life. So what do you see? I guess how can women balance without getting too sucked into and making it more like my appearance is such a core part of my identity, but still enjoy the sport? Does that make sense?
Makes perfect sense. And I love what you're saying, because like there's so many things again that dropped in, and I will share some of like my personal things I've been working through with like therapy just as an offering, but that doesn't mean it's like what I think someone should do necessarily. But I just made a post about this a few days ago that like I didn't realize that my entire life since I was a teenager has been about how I look or how I might appear to somebody. And I'm working through like some objectification things now at 38 that I didn't realize. It's almost like if I was fixated on my appearances, then of course that's the reaction and response that I get from the world. And so I always feed
Yeah.
that and then always get it back. And it just always keeps feeding itself. But at some point I'm like, wait a second,
Yeah.
what if I don't want that all of a sudden? And I've had to really go into some, if I were coaching someone, the first thing I have them do is focus on something their body can do, performative, to get their mind away from how it looks. But even under that layer, like, here's how we look, here's what my body can do, how it can perform. That can be dangerous too, because we're literally in performance mode. And sometimes you can't perform. So now it comes down to these masks where you're wearing a performative mask to be on for the world or prove, hey, I can do anything. I can survive these tough things. I can do amazing things. And now to get into the even deeper layer of that, where I'm at now, what I'm working on now is just being.
Yeah.
Just existing. And the hard part about that means coming into stillness and presence and feel. So if we're looking at how it looks, what you can do, now tapping into that layer of how you feel, it would be as if you had a blindfold on and you couldn't see yourself in the mirror. But if you had to just lay there with your eyes closed, you would eventually start to tap into like, oh, here's how my heart feels, here's how my body feels, here's how sensation and pleasure and joy feels. Like those connections to the opportunity as a human being that we get to sense things.
Yeah.
So it's really deep under there. But I think when athletes can actually learn how to connect with all of that, like here's how I look, here's how I can perform, and here's how I can feel. I actually think that's what makes the ultimate well-rounded female competitor, because like how many times do we get in our head and go, I'm going to override my body to look like this, and your body's just begging you to be like, can you just for 1 second ask me how I feel?
Yeah.
And we shut that voice out for whatever reason. And I think when female athletes can do both, they can pursue and take action, but be intuitive and feel. That's the magic athlete.
My gosh, I love, and that's the longevity formula too, right? For being happy when you're done with this. I don't know why, but I just want to like why this made it click so well, because when you say feel, I think is to a lot of us in this sport, that's hard. Like that's hard because we are constantly overriding and we are constantly just like, we don't even know how much of what we're doing is coming from where do we want this or do we want this because the reaction's fantastic and because it's working well. Exactly. And so the blindfold thing is perfect. I would say like a blindfold and maybe earplugs too. So like you can't see your end product. You can't see their reactions to it. You can't hear the feedback of it. And it's like just feeling. I love that because we lose that. We truly lose that.
Yeah. And women especially are scared to feel because I'm not going to get too far into this, but we've been conditioned that our feelings are too much. And I do believe, not all, but I do believe that there is some challenge between a female competitor and a male coach. There are really, really great intuitive male coaches who understand and know how to listen to a woman's expressions, but some males just don't have that experience, or that's a boundary, which is fine. But I think I've talked to a lot of female athletes with male coaches, and they're scared to talk to their coach. They're scared to tell them how they feel. And this isn't to be like dark, but there are times in the sport that I hear stories that didn't end well. And I just sit there and I question, I'm like, what would have happened if that woman actually stopped and listened to her body and let that make the decision? And it's kind of scary when you think about like, we have the answers right here. We're just we either turn away or we push through, or we're scared to learn how to use them to our advantage for a lot of reasons. Yeah. And so that's the part, like if I were going to try to bring anything to this sport, it would be the like, hey, this isn't just okay. It is part of you. Like I always use my thing is like, we're a machine in prep, but we're still human. And those two things can coexist. There can be reality, but the hardcore attitude for the last decade has been go big or go home, and it's just like, well, you just do the minimum action, but spend the rest of your time in alignment. And a
Yeah.
woman's intuition is, I'm sorry, guys, but like it's untouchable. So
It is.
when any coach, male or female, encourages and gives a channel for a woman's intuition and her feel to feed into that with the knowledge, with the accountability, with the instructions.
It's amazing. Well, I also think coming at it from a place of pleasure rather than pressure is huge. And I'm going to call myself out, and I've given this example like multiple times. So the last time I competed was in 2022. And so, and I got nationally qualified and then just, it was like, all right, I'm going to, pro card run. So I stayed on the circuit way too long, started looking worse and worse and worse by the end of the 4 shows that I did that year. And then by the very end of it, like once I had already said, okay, hanging it up for the season, I'm clearly looking worse. My body is starting to store body fat. I'm losing, I can't get a pump anymore. I just didn't look good by the end of it at all. And then my hair is literally falling out. But if I
Yeah,
were to go back through my check-in forms, I'm sitting there saying like, I'm okay. I could be a little hungrier. Like, just like, what the fuck? And I
right.
think back and I'm like, I didn't even give my coach a chance to, myself a chance to like feel like how, and how is this going, and use any intuition. And I was like 35, so I have no excuse
Yeah,
for being like that out of touch. So I'm curious because I can literally like think back of how I feel, and sometimes when I'm around that energy and other people, I can literally feel it. I'm like, ooh, you are just
yeah,
like, like it's just like
yeah.
radiates from them this like pressure that they're
Radiates.
putting on themselves. But
Uh-huh.
yeah. So how do you, as a coach, and I think this is hard, like how do you intercept, interfere, help that person kind of wake up, get in touch with how they're actually feeling?
Let's keep asking questions. I don't expect them to have answers to all of my questions. Like if I'm asking my client, it's funny because I've got a couple of clients who like they're very experienced, they're excellent athletes, and they still are learning how to answer my question when I say, "How muscularly full do you feel?" That's my job. I assess the photos, I ask the questions, and if they don't know, I ask like, well, does your muscle feel harder? Does it feel squishy? Does your skin feel when you pinch it? Like I just keep asking them questions. So eventually they kind of start to catch on. But like outside of the physical body, if a short answer to me is worth crying. So if somebody says good, then I'll say a follow-up question of like, do your workouts feel good? Like, tell me what feels good. And then they'll all say good, but this. And then I'm like, there it is. Or
Yeah.
if they just, I know my athletes really well and I talk to them every
Yeah.
week of the year. So I also notice how they answer the question in the length or the detail. If that's different, to me, that's a signal that's like, hey, they're really elaborating on this and they normally don't. Or normally
Yeah.
they give me details and this time they're super short. I flag that and I just kind of like, I might ask a totally unrelated question. Something I love that I ask in my check-ins for my clients is like all the bodybuilding stuff. And the very last question is just like, tell me something good that happened in your life, like not
I
bodybuilding.
love that.
Yeah. And so
Yeah.
that's where, honestly, that's where I get to see the whole picture. That's where I can tell how their mind is functioning because if they can list, I'm going to use one of my favorite examples is like my super athlete. I don't have to ask her anything. She will list off 10 things that she's thankful for every check-in every week. It's incredible because she's programmed herself to do this, but that I can tell that even if she feels bad, she's feeling the weight of prep, she's depleted, she's tired, I can tell by that gratitude list because she does it every week. I can tell how she's actually feeling. So she'll say,
Yeah.
I'm thankful for the growth. I'm thankful for this comfort, thankful for this opportunity. And that tells me she's still good.
Yeah. Especially if it shifts, right? Like I'm sure
Yeah,
that you can see a shift even in what she's naming
that
to
too. Yeah,
like, okay, this is different. Like she's
exactly.
digging for something she's grateful for right now.
Yeah. And like some of my other clients, like in the beginning, they might not have said much in that question of like what feels good outside of bodybuilding. And now they're giving me like, I can tell their perspective is expanding because they're like,
Yeah.
I get to do this with my family here at this show, or I got to go to a cookout and eat my prep food and I actually felt accomplished. I didn't eat a cookie. Like, that's huge.
Yeah. And their identity shifting with the sport. I mean, that's a cool part is like they're actually inside, they're changing. I guess for women who are like getting into this and say that they want to do, a lot of people come in and want to get right into a prep, right? A pretty common thing. How I guess, is it necessary for them to self-assess if they're coming at it from a place of pressure rather than pleasure because they like it, or is that something that gets unpacked along the way?
I love that you said it that way, because like if I get on a call with somebody who thinks they want to compete, the very first thing I ask them is like, what drew you to this?
Yeah.
I let them tell me how they got to this point, and I listen to their reasoning, and I ask them like what their why is, because once somebody tells me their why, that's our North Star. And so like sometimes the why
Yeah.
is I just want to prove it to myself. Like that's a great why to me. Then we navigate like, okay, if we are going to do this, what's our best strategy? What's the least stressful option? How long are you willing to take to build the physique to match this? And then I've got some athletes where they're mid prep. This happens a lot. They're mid prep and they were with another coach and that didn't work out. And now they're prepared. They're in momentum, but now they need someone to kind of carry them a little differently. So that's kind of a different readiness factor. But I think it's more important to connect them with like how they got there, why they got there, why they want to continue to go there, and then we decide like the route, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And keep
So
coming back to that North Star too.
yeah, because that changes too, in both ways. Some people go, I just want to get on stage to see if I can do it. And then they start to really see themselves and their potential. They're like, I want to win. I want to go pro. And then I've
Yeah.
got some athletes where this is hard because I have had some really stellar athletes and work ethic is not a question, but structurally, their genetics just aren't cut out for it. And they hit the ceiling over and over again. And I'm with them every time. And it's really hard for both of us. But at some point, we just have to have the conversation like, do you even enjoy this anymore? And if they enjoy it, changes their why.
Yeah.
They don't enjoy it. And I've had this happen too, where there's people, I've got athletes who could have beat me at the Olympia if they prepared for it, and they just have no desire. They don't they don't want to do this life. I get it.
Which is fine. Yeah.
It's fine, but
They're at
people
peace
like
with
me, and
it.
I'm like, give me your muscle, give me your genetics.
Seriously. I'm curious about the ones that you say hit kind of the ceiling. I think
Yeah.
that's really interesting. And then it comes into, in my opinion, I'm probably oversimplifying this. Does winning matter to you? Like, do you just like the process?
And that is a conversation that I constantly ask my athletes, and I love it. I love the attitude of like, I'm going to win. We have to do that for ourselves. We have to tell ourselves we're going to win until the outcome happens. Like we owe
Yeah.
it to ourselves to do that. But the reality of it is we do have to have the conversation of like, okay, if you don't, is this going to break your heart? Is this going to cost your confidence? And I've had to have those conversations before shows sometimes where like I see where the reality of where we're at. And I just ask them, I'm like, hey, this is possible. Do you still want to pursue it for other reasons? Or do you think that's going to wreck you? And if it's going to wreck that competitor, I'm not going to have them go up there, even if they looked good or even if they looked a little bit off, because I know the damage of going into a show with an expectation and not having that experience. That is sometimes what keeps athletes from ever coming back at all. And I don't want to be.
Yeah.
So it's interesting because there's so each person is so different. There's all these different possibilities, and it challenges me as a coach because like I said, I've had athletes who I believe they should have their pro card by now, and they just kept getting second place and second place and second place, and it's
Frustrating.
heartbreaking. It's so heartbreaking. And I do I have a rule with myself and my clients that we like, there is a space for our emotions, but we can't let it bleed into our work. And it's really hard for me as a coach not to be in the emotions of that because I see it. I see them as a pro. To me, they're already holding those letters and they just aren't awarded that. And those are tough conversations because sometimes I have to look at myself and say, like, did I do everything that I could for that athlete as the coach that I am? And I can proudly say yes. Never had an athlete leave where I didn't think I gave it my best.
Yeah.
But then I'm like, what if there's another coach that could have gotten them there? There's always that question. And I would want that person to explore another coach before they completely gave it up. But just sometimes the truth is it doesn't matter who the coach is. It doesn't matter the work they'll do. It's just the genetic shape. And that's the kind of
Yeah.
it's like how many beatings can you take? Because I'm experienced in that. I keep coming back.
Yeah. It's a sport that you can't control who shows up.
That's the hardest part.
Yeah, so they could be killing it with like their best physique on stage and place like fifth or something because just like all these ladies came out of the woodworks that were just phenomenal that day. Or they could come on with their physique not at its best and win. Like it's just like that's the nature of the sport. It doesn't you can only control what you can control within this sport. So it's like you have to see it on a different level and not be so outcome dependent. But to circle back to what you said, like you also have to go in with the mindset that you're going to win because it's so hard to do it anyway. It's the only stuff that
Yeah.
like holds both. Like I don't care if I win, but I'm doing this to win.
It's funny you say that because I was on a walk the other day and this dropped in my head that I was like, because I question myself sometimes because I've always been like delusionally optimistic.
I love it.
And it's taken me really far. And over time, I started to listen to other people's ideas because they'd say, like, we need to be realistic. And I'm like, no, I don't. And then over time, I'm like, should I be realistic? And then I decided that for me, I choose to be optimistic until proven otherwise. And then I prepare to be realistic.
I should write that down for myself too.
First, I go into it with optimism and I prepare and trust myself to handle it with realism afterwards.
Yes. I always say that my toxic trait is like I'm delusionally optimistic and then I will like lock in on a goal and not want to let go of it. So I'm like, now I'm on the hook and I was so optimistic this is going to happen. You know, it's like, it's a great thing, but it's kind of dangerous at the same time. So
I love that you said it's dangerous because it really can be. And I've had to catch myself on that quite a bit where I have to remind myself to still be, if I'm going to be optimistic, that means I also have to be adaptable.
Yeah. Okay. How do you have hard conversations with your clients then? Because it's like if you're super optimistic, you want the best for them, you believe in them, like you always, I'm guessing, probably like see their peak potential. How do you have hard conversations with them whenever there just are limiting factors?
You know my real answer?
Yeah.
Step out of my ego and I ask my higher self to do the talking.
I love that. That's brilliant.
Because sometimes I don't know how to say the perfect words. But something I really establish with my clients up front is how important to me that it is that we communicate as two collaborative adults.
Yeah.
And I'm not a boss and I'm not an employee and I'm not telling them what to do and I'm not their mother and I'm not a judge. So like I expect us to have enough respect for each other to have hard conversations.
Yeah.
And here's my approach in this. I feel good integrity around it. So like, I'm not afraid to say it here, but like, if there's a problem, that problem shouldn't be between me and you. Me and you should be on the same side and the problem's on the opposite side. So like, that's how I navigate conversations and say, what is the problem?
Yeah.
And I've been the problem before. I'm no perfect coach. I've been doing this since 2011, but I've made mistakes. And so sometimes the problem is Autumn made a mistake. I have to come around to that side with my client and look at my mistake from their point of view and address it. Or this is something that I think people forget, including myself. Like sometimes things happen and it's not a fault. It's not that client's fault. It's not my fault. It just happened. That's a great time to be like, hey, we had no control over this. We didn't see this coming. We didn't know how to handle it. We still come together. As long as me and the client are together, we will be successful.
Yeah.
At the point that there's a divide or a lack or a block in communication, that's where we split.
Yeah.
And a lot of times it comes down to trust. So I'm up front and I just tell them, like, I don't know everything. I'm still learning. If I have a question, I've got plenty of highly knowledgeable prep coaches who I use as mentors. And I don't expect my client to be perfect either. And I know that they're still learning and we're all going to make mistakes. But as long as we can like hold hands through it blindly and figure it out, that's where I've gotten to have clients for like 5 and 7 years and we're still growing.
That's amazing. It's us versus the problem can go and be applied to so many things too. I guess it's like that depersonalizing the issue. Because if we go back to what we were saying earlier about like shedding friendships, shedding like prior versions of yourself, it's not like you versus me. It's like us in our alignment, just not in the same place anymore, right?
I love what you just said. Like it's not in the same place anymore because that's happened too.
You changed.
Yeah. I thought of it that way you said it, but you're right.
Yeah. So I want to make sure that we're pulling, because you have so much just powerful like information and lessons around identity. Can we talk more about like just what you typically see in people for the more identity shifts and things like that? Because we have a lot of new listeners, like our new people to the sport that come in and listen to this. So we talked about identity shifts internally. We talked about identity shifts within like the circles. What else do you think they need to be prepared for as their identity shifts with the sport?
Oh my gosh. It's funny because when you say that, I think like 10 things. What do they need to be prepared for when they're shifting identities? I would say, I guess this kind of goes back to the shedding piece, but like I know what I'm trying to say. I'm trying to say this in better words. The void.
Yeah.
The void between who you were and who you're not yet is the weirdest place, because you can't, once you sever yourself from an old identity truly, you can't reach back for it. But if you haven't yet connected with who you're becoming, you can't reach out to it. So you're just kind of floating in this, like, what the hell am I doing? Who am I?
Yeah.
If you don't have your safe, it's like when you jump out of the plane, you don't have a safety net anymore, and you know the ground's coming, and you're just like, but the void is so uncomfortable because, like, our brains are programmed to attach to what's familiar. And if you continue to keep your old self, your old habits and patterns, and the way that you talk to yourself and see yourself, and you keep that available, your brain will always preferentially reach back for that than to reach for something that's foreign.
Totally.
And you have to keep, if we look at it like leveling up for these higher versions of ourselves, it's scary to not know how to get to that next step. And again, it's like a blind faith thing. And it's almost like you have to pursue it just with no roadmap, really, because you never learn how to get there until the micro opportunities that happen throughout the day.
Well, that's why you have a coach.
Exactly. Yeah. And so it's like, that's part of my job. Part of my job is to hold them to the standard of who they're becoming.
Yeah.
At least give them the confidence and support of letting go of who they were, who they're not trying to be anymore. But then showing them, it's like, that's kind of what I do best, is I connect the dots, and I can guide people to harness their own energy. A lot of it's just self-talk. I won't let my clients check in a certain way. I give them like a 2 or 3 strike thing, and I'm like, I don't like the way you're talking about your body. I don't like the way, I don't say it in those words, but I'm like, I'm not going to engage with this focus anymore. Because
I appreciate that so much. It's one of my pet peeves. Yeah. We're not going to speak on ourselves like this. Yeah.
Yeah. Or just if my client has a doubt or a fear, my first action is to annihilate it so that we can get back to relaxing and get back to work. But if a client gets hung up on it, and I have no shame in saying this too, like, I need my therapist, and I wear that with pride, and I encourage my clients to get therapists, because like that's beyond my qualifications. But my clients who do lean into their therapist and do their deep work and share that with me, that's a really great trio to have. But I can basically keep them, when I can help them harness their own energy. Those are the ones that reach that next level the fastest, because it's keeping it contained. It's keeping it's literally taking all of their energy that they could be spending on poor self-talk, self-doubt, distractions. And if I can just bring that into a streamline, and now we're pouring all of that into opportunity, possibility, excitement, pride, that's where things fast forward for everybody. So that's kind of my job, is just to keep them from wasting their own energy, really.
And giving them the practical steps too. Like, you've walked this life, you've made the transformation. So you can probably spot where they are on that continuum, and it's just give them like, okay, here are the actual, like, call it like the logical steps, and here's the emotional support as well.
Yes. And I can't make them step toward it, but I can lay out the stepping stones.
So important, so critical. If somebody's, say, like road to pro, because we do hear this a lot, with your experience, with the athletes you've worked with the peers that you have that are also pros, what are some of the characteristics of an identity that is required to perform at that level? I know that's a really hard one.
No, I like this question a lot. It's hard not to hit on just that self-imagery. Like, just visualization is such a powerful tool for any athlete at the caliber of, top notch, like Michael Jordan. Total visual. Like he saw nothing but his vision, and then he lived nothing but his vision. So I think the ability of, whether it's like a pro or an Olympian or whatever, it's like you have to learn how to visualize with your mind's eye, but more importantly, you have to learn how to wire your brain in a way that lets that experience feel real before it actually happens. And and like, it starts with the picture, but the hard part is some people can't even create that picture because they instantly start breaking it down with, I can't do that, or that's not possible for me. So that's what I mean. Like, if we can just shut out the distractions, pour into that piece. But once I can get somebody to see it just once, that's all it takes.
Hold it.
Just hold it. Like, that's the starting point of developing this neurological connection. But going back to the feel that we were talking about, your body also has to believe it's possible. Which comes down to a safety. And sometimes the safety is just giving yourself permission to imagine. And so I think a lot of top level athletes, they're disciplined and they're diligent and they're tenacious, but they also play and explore in the imagination of possibility.
It's like we were saying earlier about this like beautifully dangerous thing of optimism. You know, like why not believe that you can do it? There's actually a trend going around on social media right now where someone shows a picture of them as a kid and then what they're doing now. And then the whole gist is that I didn't think I could do this. And it's one of those trends that I'm always like, oh, I want to steal every trend. And then I'm like, but I don't relate to that. Like there's nothing I'm doing that I didn't think I could do. You know, there's
I
nothing
love
that like,
that.
yeah, I'm not sounding like
Yeah.
an asshole or like arrogant or anything, but I'm like, no, like there's nothing that I'm doing that I like. It doesn't make sense to me. I'm like, what? Like, how did anybody end up doing it if they weren't envisioning it?
Right. And that could go in any pathway of any art performer we've ever seen in
Yeah.
history. And that, like, I've always been so intrigued by Michael Jackson's mindset.
Hmm.
He stretched so far beyond the rest of us. And it was just like an inner knowing and a boldness. And that was the other thing I was going to say about like top athletes, trusting the bold idea,
Yeah.
not questioning it and just riding it and see where it takes us, kind of a thing. And I think that might be something that I would assume that a lot of top athletes can also trust when they're being, I don't want to say called on, but when they're given the bold wave, they know how to jump on it.
Yeah. Unapologetically, too. I think, especially as women.
Yes. And it's like, I think when we tune into our own, this whole thing is a game, it's a sport. We have to play by the rules, but it's also an art. And I
Yeah.
still to this day don't know how to give my definition of art, but I know that when you pull it back into a place of love and creation, it always, always, always comes out better than anybody could have played the perfect strategic game. And I
Yeah.
think, like when you're talking about pleasure earlier, something that I have had in order to keep me in this sport for a long time, I've had to really shift out of, like, I know how to play the game and it's gotten me far, but there's still something missing. And what's missing is when I really create from my internal, like my heart, my abilities.
Yeah.
And that has taken me much further in the sport, and it's also satisfaction for me a lot deeper than if I just played the rules, you know. And so, like, even with, I say this to my opposing clients all the time, it's like we have to learn the strategy, we have to learn the game first, then we create with that and like kind of channel that energy. And that's what I think is happening in our sport now, where it's like when I first started this 23 years ago, we just didn't have the resources and we didn't have the standard. And this
Hmm.
sport has grown so much and it's really incredible to watch. But I think people are really starting to, like, I don't want to say like level up in their tools, but they're leveling up in their boldness to bring their energy to the structure of the sport.
Which is so cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so cool. So there's so much that ties together about what you're saying. And I think it's a lot of this is why I think I feel so like drawn to you. And I'm very honored that you're here and very lucky to be able to speak with you. And even just so many people were chiming in to say how excited they were about hearing from you because it comes across. And I know like we see you in social media, but it's like unlike a lot of other athletes that I see, you show a lot of play. Like it does show that you're coming from a place of like pleasure with this. It doesn't have I don't want to say it doesn't have the same intensity because obviously you're at an extremely high level with everything that you're doing from like coaching to being an athlete and everything. But it's that pleasure play. This actually aligns with my identity and who I am. And I think that's what's really so appealing is to see someone in flow state, essentially, right? Like this
Yeah.
is a game to you in a good way.
I really appreciate you saying that because that was a lot of work. It's been a lot of work to learn how to play.
Yeah.
And that came down to my own safety. I didn't feel safe in my existence for so long. And admittedly, I can say this now, and it's still kind of hard to say, but I'm making up for it. I'm making up with myself for it. But like, I beat myself up for way too long for reasons that I didn't deserve and they weren't mine. But
Yeah.
I believe that I was worth punishing for not for being too much or being a certain way or whatever. Like all these things I heard throughout my life, I started to believe it and I started to like take it out on myself. And that's how I got to my first Olympia, was just out of beating the fuck out of my body because I could, because I can take pain, because I can be intense.
Hmm.
And that's why by the time the second Olympia came around, I was like, I need to step back because I can't continue to do it in this way. I'm not supposed to. I shouldn't reach the top out of punishment
Yeah.
and
And just
hardship.
all the, yeah.
So that's why, like, that my last Olympian in 2023, I knew, I was like, gosh, I was like, I'm gonna have to step back. I'm in the peak of this amazing experience, but I have to step back because my heart knew I couldn't stay in this sport if I were going to keep doing that to myself. So that's where I had to be like, I need to learn how to feel. I need
Yeah.
to learn how to come back to this sport. The way I introduced myself to it in the first place was out of like, I felt empowered. I felt like loved. I mean, I was scared because I was getting bullied, but it's like, what happened to that autumn? And it was because I was chasing this. I was like, I have to get to the Olympia. And then when I did, then I realized I was actually like kind of tired, like soul tired.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and then I thought like, okay, I'm gonna come back to this, but I need to be softer with myself. I need to be gentler with myself, doing things because I'm doing it out of want to, not fear or obligation. And that's when I started, like, even my training is different. This is funny to say, but like I noticed in my walk that I'm different now, because when I would walk anywhere before, was this, pardon my French, was like, don't fuck with me, don't talk to me. It was very aggressive. Everywhere I went was very aggressive because I was in protection mode all the time and like fierce, I'm gonna do this thing. And then all of a sudden one year I just realized, I was like, when did my walk get like so easy? Like it was like I was just floating around. And then but that's how I walk with, when I'm with Derek, that's how I walk. So then I
Hmm.
was like, my brain is programmed to see everything as a threat that I need to force through. So I had to kind of threaten my brain so that I could relax. And now I walk a lot more gently. Like I trust my body, I trust my surroundings. And that actually translates like on stage too. Because I can look back at my stage videos and my walk looked rehearsed. It was
Yeah.
embodied. I rehearsed my poses. But the last show that I did in last fall, that was maybe one of my first shows that I looked at and I could see the difference in my energy and in my mind. I've done the same pose routine for years. I've done the same stage walk for years, but like my whole walk was different out on that stage.
Cool.
And
That's
so, yeah,
amazing.
yeah, like every nuance of my movement wasn't rehearsed anymore. It was exuding from the inside out because I had changed so much.
That's what I want to like manifest for every woman in this sport is exactly what you just said. And I'm so happy you went back to do it again because you could have elected to say, like, I don't know, there's just a million different versions of what could have happened. But the fact that you went back to have the experience from a state of softness and play. I mean, that's huge. I think I'm being kicked out of this room. They were standing in the doorway staring at me and I didn't want to interrupt you. So I'm just gonna move into the common space, but I can still talk. So just give me one
Funny.
second to move.
I love this.
But what you were saying is exact. I mean, I'm not kidding. That's exactly what I want to manifest for people because I think that
Yeah.
so many people, they think if I get on stage and compete, then I'm going to feel this or then I'm going to be that or whatever. But if you're not coming at it from a good, positive, like flow state, then it doesn't come together that way. It's just a miserable, it can be a miserable experience or at least a very
Yeah.
high pressure experience.
Yeah, and I think that's like just the whole play part. That's honestly like when I felt so relaxed that I could play on stage, those are the shows that I want. But
Yeah.
I was in a state of play a few days before, and that comes down to the preparation of it. But that's what I want my athletes to do too. That it's like the play is back to that art that we were talking about.
Yeah. Did it make prep easier too?
Which part?
The being in more of a softer state.
Nah, for me, it was challenging because I've functioned this way the whole life. Have you heard of masculine and feminine energy? Like, do you know at all what I'm
Yeah, I'm following totally with what you're saying.
but the way I can say that I've been able to observe myself is like and that's what I mean. Like I got my accomplishment from high masculine energy, but I had no concept of feminine energy until
Yeah.
3 years ago. My therapist introduced it to me, and I'm like, I don't get it. I don't understand what you're saying. So my last year was my first prep of finding that concept. So like when I left the 2023 Olympia prep, I was still in my hyper masculine drive. And then the year that we got married and I took off, I fell into the feminine energy on the opposite end of the spectrum. And then when I did my prep last year, it was like I was finding my way back to the masculine action part. I almost slipped too far into the allowing, receiving, gentle. ease that I
Uh-huh.
think, if I'm being honest, I think I hadn't quite honed in on how to hold both equally, masculine and feminine.
Oh,
So
holding both equally, so hard.
yeah, like it was
Or in a
softer.
flow, like,
Mhm.
yeah.
So what my idea at the time was, and I didn't come in peak condition like I normally did, but also my coach did an
Yes,
incredible job with
estoy temas. Okay, no problema.
my coach did an incredible job of rolling with me, but I really didn't give either of us a lot of time. And he did everything he should have done when I said, coming from my thickest off season probably ever, and I was like, hey, I want to get on stage in 18 weeks. I needed more, like probably 24 weeks. So he did fantastic. But I think I think I had to go through that to understand how softness can work in prep, how I could work with that feminine energy in prep. And now in retrospect, I can go, okay, I swung too far to the left side. And that's what I'm finding my way back to now, is like, how can I utilize both? How can I call on both to where it's like I can do the things that need to be done to make this happen, and I can be just stillness in my existence and presence and magnetize the outcome that I want,
Yeah,
instead of
yeah.
can't just manifest and not do anything, and you can't just do everything and not receive. So that's where my
I
life
think
is right now.
your awareness of it is really cool though, because I think a lot of women who are in this sport or are attracted to this sport, they are in their masculine energy and they know it. A lot of them know it. Like it's how we perform. It's what we've been rewarded for our entire lives. It's gotten us like good jobs and, status
We're
and
wired
noticed
for
and
it.
this. Yeah, exactly. So now we've been like conditioned that this is all we want to do is just stay in this energy, and we're high driving. We call it A type and high performance and all these other
Yeah,
things. But it's like, it's great for burning out, and it's great for not like feeling and not knowing, do you want this, or like do you just want the reward that comes from this? So the fact that to hear someone who's been through like such a high level of this, and working through it is refreshing. Because I would bet that there are a lot of pros that don't get on that level. They just stay in that masculine
yeah.
energy.
And I think like the hard part, the hard sentence for me to look in the mirror and say to myself to really deepen with this was for me to look myself in the eye and say, like, I deserve it.
Yeah.
That is such a hard thing for us to say to ourselves, and you have to believe that. So if you can't even mutter the words to yourself, let alone look yourself in the eyeballs when you say it in the mirror, like, it's, how can your brain and your body hear you
Yeah.
to call it in. And so that I can remember my tipping points where I actually, gosh, I remember the shows right before I won. And I have this ritual with myself before I leave my hotel room to go down to prejudging. I stop everything and I go look at myself in the mirror to like remind me who the fuck I am.
I love that.
I remember now looking in the mirror and saying, Autumn, you deserve this win. And then I
Oh,
did it. But I didn't always do that because I didn't always
yeah.
believe it. Some
So
shows I would say it and then I'm like,
So for you, it sounds like a really big part of getting into that more feminine, softer side was like security and feeling secure in your presence and what you've accomplished and everything.
yeah, that's honestly, that has been harder work for me than bodybuilding.
Yeah.
Bringing it in as a bodybuilder has been challenging, but like I'm used to the hard stuff in bodybuilding. It's not hard anymore. This new stuff of like leaning into that feminine softness has been my hardest work, but I'm really starting to understand the importance and the value of it to be human.
Yeah. It's almost like you're wearing like a different skin suit, like a
Yes.
different soul to do it, because it's such a different side of you that you're coming at it from. So it's like you're almost like putting on this like alter ego, but it's you still. If
Yeah.
that makes it, like that's what it feels like. It's like you're doing it through hold, like you're left-handed or something. I'm trying to think of a way
Yeah.
to explain like how different it feels like, but it's so important. I think this is what people like don't realize, like, because it gets so heavily applauded to stay in that like masculine and structured and drive, 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 go, go, go. But it's like it matters to have both, because you don't, because of the burnout factor and or burnout prevention factor, and because you do want it to be play. And if this isn't right for somebody, they need to be able to like feel that and own it too and walk away from it.
Yeah. And like even now when you're saying, like as you were saying it, like that is one of the other things, like when you asked earlier about like what a pro mindset has,
Yeah.
it's like I think a big part of that is whatever work we need to do to actually tell ourselves that like we were just talking about, like that we deserve it, that we can receive it. Because there's so much that comes around that, like people pleasing and like self-abandonment. Like there's all these deep
Hmm.
things attached. It's not just a simple sentence to go, I deserve this. It's like you have to work through all the stuff that's again under the tip of the iceberg of that one sentence. And that's the undoing and the reforming that we have to do with ourselves. And that's not like, it's such a practice, and it comes in
Yeah.
cycles too. And that's what I'm learning too. Like I might have cycles where my physical body is top notch, but my internal spiritual, mental, and emotional body haven't synchronized in that cycle yet. And I can look back at this last show and say my body wasn't exactly where it should have been, but as crazy as this sounds, I think I had deeper lessons to learn before I could hold that crown.
Yeah.
That's where I'm like, now I'm like, I'm spending time doing the deeper lessons that are like, oh, going to allow me that when I have the top winning physique, that I can actually hold that deserving, that worthiness. I've been
Yeah.
working through a lot of worthiness things, but I'm like, how could I possibly be Miss Figure Olympia if I don't even feel worthy of or capable of holding that what I want to receive? So I'm kind of
Yeah.
doing more work on that and trusting that that will also bleed into like getting my body prepared. But I've just kind of recognized that I was like, there's no way I could try to make the perfect body, but I can't receive that frequency if I'm not doing the frequency work.
We know it will. That like that's the thing.
Yeah.
It's like we were just saying, like we know it'll work. It's just it's you can't. It's easier said than done. So you
Right.
know it's gonna work. It's just like how do you actually like hold that vision and like cultivate that vision? Yeah,
Yeah.
it's relatable too because there's aspects of my life where I'm like I can't like I know what I want, but I can't quite like see it, and I have to do a lot of work around like. Yeah, what does it actually look like? What are the blocks? Why can't you see it? There's always
Oh
something that's
yeah.
blocking it. There's something that's like it would want this, but I think it means that I'm gonna have to give up this or whatever. Like there's all those
Yeah.
blocks too.
Yeah, being open to change and being open to things not costing what you think they're going to cost.
The cost. That's
I
it. That's a
I've
good
been
way to
through
say
that
it.
too, where I'm like, I'm associating reward with cost, which isn't always true.
Back to that masculine history too.
Right.
You know how hard it was.
Hey,
Yeah, I love that. Well, thank you so much for sharing your journey. What do you see being next for you?
gosh, honestly, right now I'm in a funny. I'm really just coming back to my like why I love to coach. Like this conversation is really good because this is really making me feel like authentic in my alignment as a coach.
Mhm.
So I'm just kind of like growing my businesses in a way of alignment, not rush or like comparison kind of thing. And just honestly just I'm enjoying this year. I'm enjoying
Good.
like doing activities. I'm spending a lot of quality time with people that when I'm in prep, I don't get to do. So without really having a what's next an event, I'm kind of just being like here right now, which is a good practice. So I'm almost just as excited to see like what unfolds next because it's almost like my eyes can't see right in front or what's out there in front of me. It's just like right here.
You're putting all the pieces together though, and I do want to comment on you as a coach, like just from everything we've talked about, I like life changing. Like whenever you get to work with a good coach that is actually going into like the science and all the stuff that they need to have to get your physique where it goes, but the like life changing factor of connecting your identity to the next level. I love that's your emphasis. Like that's such a gift to give other people.
Thank you for saying that. I think that feels really good for it. It feels good to hear that too, like for other people listening, just to know that like that's an option or that it exists. And I know
Yeah.
there's so many great coaches out there that like they practice this or they do it. It comes with their package. So that's what's exciting too. Is I'm seeing a lot more opportunity for athletes to connect with coaches in that way.
That is fantastic. Okay, I have some hot seat questions for you, but
Okay,
before I get into those, is there anything else that I should have asked you or that you wanted to share with us?
gosh, I was just happy to even talk that much.
If you think of anything, feel free to interrupt me and let me know. And in case it's being picked up on the audio, I apologize to anybody. I'm in a co-working space and there's some background noise. But all right, Adam, first hot seat question. What is one piece of advice you've received that has stuck with you?
Goodness, which quote of Derek's am I going to pull out here? I think the theme right now, the prominent one right now is Derek has adopted this way for us to start our day with play. Back with what we were talking about.
I love it.
Yeah, it's like instead of, because I've always been the disciplined person, and I would beat my friends, laugh at me for this. I know if they hear this, they'll call it out. But like I do my discipline things so that I can play.
Hmm.
Completely reverse that for me. And like we kind of start with that now. Like if we have a business meeting, we try to start with something playful to shift us into that state, then go into work. And it's kind of been a game changer for me,
That's really cool.
right?
Yeah. And it's not how you would think to do anything either. It
Yeah, or
is.
I think he says like joy or play, like either one. And it's like, why not just reward yourself with that up front? And it puts you in a way better position to do whatever you needed to do.
Opens you up a bit more for creativity and just
Uh-huh.
like a better energy to go into the hard thing with, right?
Yeah, and it's helped me disassociate that I need to earn joy. It's like I
Hmm.
just joy first.
Or God, there's so many that's really great advice. It takes the friction out of it too. You know, you get the
Yeah,
friction, yeah, of like getting started on something hard. There's always that friction, like, oh, I don't want to do it, I don't want to do it.
I
It's
think
the,
that's what he. I think that's if he were going to explain it, he would. What you just said is like the idea behind it. The reason
that's brilliant.
you're approaching it because it's like, oh, this is fun, not approaching it already being resistant.
Okay, I absolutely love that. Next question is if you could teach a class on one thing not related to your professional expertise, what would it be?
Goodness, what do I know a lot about for no good reason? I'm really into so many things. I'm getting really into intuitive movement. It's a new thing for me. I don't really know how to explain it, but I'm starting to try to figure out what it is that my body is doing so that I can teach other women how to do it with theirs. It's not dance. It's not like I teach a move. It's more like a movement of energy that just when I'm not thinking about it, it just kind of comes out. And I think it's just going into that like intuitive connection with our body.
Yeah,
And I don't even understand what I'm exploring myself, but I feel how important it is, especially as an athlete, especially as like being so rigid in my body for so long. I'm starting to learn movement that my body like wants to do that, and when I give it permission and a space to play in that, it just I don't know what experience. It's something that I'm like, oh, this is really important for my healing and for my like my physical body, like the looseness of it. So if I could teach someone that, I would also have to learn more about it. But that's honestly like that's what's intriguing my brain right now. It's almost like the connection.
cool.
The only way I guess I could really describe it is like, you know how like a lot of neuroscience supports like how dance affects your brain, and
Hmm.
your longevity and your memory and your like
Yeah,
as we get older, it's like everyone's like, oh, go dance. Whatever
yeah.
that is where my brain is wanting to explore that's not bodybuilding. And I feel like after bodybuilding, I'm like, I need to know more about this because I think I'm gonna go into some venture of that.
So cool. It's almost like engaging neuroplasticity, but through like a physical realm,
Yes.
through
You said
movement.
it better than I could. That.
I think I can picture kind of what you mean too about just like getting in touch with that intuitive side, but applying it more physically, right?
Yeah, like it's not for me, it's not something that was taught. It's something I unlocked.
Yeah. What does it look like for you? Like, how does it show up in your day?
The movement.
Uh-huh.
Okay, I have a funny story. It started with this beach ball. I was teaching a posing clinic in Orlando, and it snowed here in Louisville, and I got stuck by a pool, but nobody was there because it was like January. And I was just listening to my music because like a DJ, and I was just actually listening to the songs for once. And this beach ball rolled over to my feet, and I was just like toying with it for a little bit. And then I started to like not pay attention. And then I was like rolling it around with my hands. And then I was like, oh, this feels really good. And then I was like, what if I do it with my arms? And I just started like, I'm sure if
Yeah.
someone saw me, they were probably like, what is that girl on? I ended up doing it for like 4 hours because it felt so good for my body. But I had to fight this. I had to fight through the thing that was like, how does this look? Because
Yeah.
the point isn't to do it right or how it looks. Again, it's how it feels. It's what my body, like, what does my body want to do? I let my body override all of this. And it's kind of amazing to watch because I don't know what comes out. So I got these like LED light balls, these beach balls.
Whoa.
It's so much fun. So that's my play right now is before the sun comes up, I go to my backyard when it's dark and I just, nobody can see me and I just do my weird. It's almost like qigong or something like that,
Yeah.
flow thing. But the way that it connects me to myself to start my day like that has been like, it is necessary for my health. Like it's almost like a somatic therapy that I've found. And sometimes when I don't have the ball, I just see what my hands, where they go or whatever. But it's interesting because I think it's something that like at first I was like kind of shy about, like even talking about it right now. I've never talked about it before with, except like my husband Derek, so even to describe it right now feels funny and like almost like, oh, should I be talking about this? But I think that's kind of the point of it, is that there's no wrong way to do it.
It seems like a really good means to applying everything that we've been talking about. I can totally see this
Yeah.
being so relevant. I'm so with you, and I don't mean to like. I feel like I'm going really deep into this.
Okay, good, because I'm like, I don't know.
I'm I'm totally with you because I'm like I am totally with you, but it really is. It's like you're letting go of like the appearance factor like we've been talking about and just like feeling and just, flowing with everything. So I love that you're finding a
Yeah.
way that's more accessible and like readily available that you could possibly
Uh-huh.
teach other people those practices because like it's so much to explain, but if you can just feel it, then people start to get it.
Yeah, and it's great because like I can do it for 5 minutes or I can do it for an hour or whatever. And like sometimes, not all the time, but like I've realized how much I really like to wear dresses, and I never wear dresses because I'm always in gym clothes. And so
Hmm.
part of that for me is saying I'm just really going to tap into my feminine side for a little bit. And so it just feels good to put on a dress and go dance in your backyard once in a while,
Yeah.
out of your athlete uniform and your mode, and just like, when you were a little girl and you're just twirling around and just didn't give a shit and just nobody cared. Like trying to get back to that. So I try to make the effort to like carve out space just to go be a fairy in my backyard for a little bit.
I want that so much for everybody, though. I mean, like, what a beautiful thing to have and like just experience and just to feel
Yeah.
that. Ah, that's so great. Okay, I have one more question for you, and
Uh,
that is, what are your predictions for where bodybuilding, fitness, wellness industry will be in the next 5 years?
my goodness. Great question, because I've seen a lot of trends over the years. Where will it be? It wouldn't surprise me if there's another division or two.
Interesting. For women.
I'm actually, I would assume for women, but I'm kind of surprised they haven't added another one for men yet.
Hmm.
The 5 year question is really great because, like, with them just adding, you think about like how long are this organization, the main organization, has been around for 30 years. And they just added fit model with the
Hmm.
stipulation of you can't cross over. So they're keeping it contained for a marketable look.
Hmm.
And I see the argument here a lot, so I stay out of it. So it's like, it's a bodybuilding show, no pageantry. But I would, when you think about, what's the right word, just growth, it wouldn't surprise me if at some point this bodybuilding organization connected with a little more pageantry or modeling opportunities, still keeping a distinction there, but like, it's what's the saying? It's like, if you can't beat them, if you can't beat them, beat.
Yeah.
Not like the NPC or the IFBB or the bodybuilding organization needs to compete with anything else, but it makes sense to bring in, it makes business sense and survival sense
Hmm.
to create more opportunities and options as a huge umbrella.
Yeah. And you're thinking for modeling or just for more people being the sport being more accessible to more people?
Both, but
Interesting.
I'm kind of just curious. They brought fit model in for women, but are they going to bring something like that in for men?
I think for men, they probably are overdue for it, right? I mean, Figure is pretty big. That's
Right.
already.
Wondering if something will plug in whatever the fit model equivalent would be. Are they going to create something like that for men for the marketable look? The container, the separation point is so important, because I think that's what some people who are getting upset about any of these being introduced is they assume it's going to bleed out into the other existing divisions. But as long as they have that rule, there's no crossover.
Yeah,
It can't bleed into it. It's prevented. It's prevented. So I actually think that was one smart rule that they made about that.
it was.
But here's what I know, and I don't know. I'm glad I'm not a judge, because this is so hard. And I understand the meetings and the agreements that they have at the end of each year to keep everybody in the same line of thinking and training. But the tendency over the 23 years that I've done this is every so often they used to say this. It'd be like 5 or 6 years of the physiques keep growing, they keep getting bigger, better, harder. And then the judges say, we need to reset. We let it go too far or something along those lines. And they either shift the what's rewarded back to center where it belonged, or they give a new division option.
Yeah.
So, for as long as people are getting smarter and working harder, that is going to trend that way. But the judges, I have faith in our judges that they do what is right to the best of their ability to keep everything centered. But again, you said it earlier, it just depends on who shows up on stage that day. And people, you're seeing the most incredible physiques, younger people in more optimal genetics.
Yeah.
Through breeding.
Yeah.
Of course,
Yeah.
the sport is going to continue to get freakish, but it's like the judges do what they can to keep that anchored. And if they can't, they're being smart about it by saying, well, let's create this compartment so that it can still thrive.
Yeah.
And so
I would hate to be a judge.
I expect the physiques to continue to get more and more insane. I expect the judges to do their best, and I expect there to be more divisions.
I think that's a really good prediction. And I would hate to be a judge. It's really
hard.
It would be so hard.
I judged 3 times, and the only reason I couldn't continue to do that was because I was a coach. But I've talked to a lot of my judging friends, and not only is it hard for them to do the job, they have to deal with what comes with them, and they get a lot of words are said that judges don't deserve.
Yeah.
And they have to handle it professionally. Like, I just have a lot of respect for our judges.
I do too. And I think for
judges.
Yeah, I really am too. And I just haven't seen some of the things that I hear about in terms of like judges being like, just the negative things that I hear. And I think it's a really hard job. I personally think I would be terrible at it because I just see too much gray and like it's, I'm not like decisive and like these things. Yeah, I think it's a really hard job, but I think that's a great call for where the industry is going for sure. So thank you for your feedback on all of that. The point about the men's side too, because I don't talk about them very much, honestly.
Yeah. It's a curiosity. I'm just waiting to see if that happens. I don't have a lot of male clients. I still have some male posing clients, but I've kind of watched that. I'm like, see if anything pops up.
Yeah. Okay, Autumn, well, please tell us or tell the people where they can find you and how they can work with you.
I'd say on Instagram, just message me. It's automatic, AUT, and then ATIKK, or really just go into my website, which is autumncleveland.com. It's probably the fastest way.
Fantastic. And guys, just so everybody knows, we do have, and I'll put all of this in the show notes, we'll have a code so they can get a discount to your posing course.
I love that.
Which, congratulations. I saw that you just hit over 1,000 users.
Yeah, really appreciate that. Derek and I were just talking about it. So Derek built it for all the back end stuff was all him. And so we really celebrated that, just to say like,
oh, that's awesome.
Help that many people. So I'm excited. Thank you.
It's huge. Yeah, and if you're in the group, guys, whenever I posted about Autumn coming on the show, there were multiple people that chimed in on that post and said they were already had done your posing course and how great it was. So so we'll have a discount code in the show notes for that. Is there anything else that I missed?
No, thank you for talking with me this long. I loved all of this conversation.
This was fantastic. Thank you so much, Autumn.
Thank you.